We'll see you tomorrow night. And try and dodge cars that were flying off the road at every conceivable angle.
Hey, people got to slow down just a little bit when it gets that nasty, and usually the first storm of the season, you see everybody everywhere. Wildcats win another face-off as Scott Smith won the draw. Loose puck in center ice, controlled by Wisconsin. Rafalski at his own blue line across. Cleared down to the Northern Michigan line. Drop pass, Moore. Centering pass right in on goal. And Sarda falls down and makes the pass pad save. And the Cats clear it back up through center ice. Dumped into the zone by Joe Frederick. Play loose along the near side boards. Wildcats fail to hold it. Drake bumps his man right at the blue line. That's Rafalski. Back through center ice, Kurtz, and the shot in on Sardiff, and he's going to hang on to another one. Third consecutive face-off in the Northern Michigan zone.
Well, just a minute into the hockey game, the Wildcats have already given up 3 shots on goal and have yet to have a chance at Dwayne Dirksen. Taking a look at scores from last night in the WCHA, there you see the Wildcats with the victory over Wisconsin. Minnesota winning in non-conference action, 4-0 over Alaska Anchorage. North Dakota won up in Houghton. And Colorado College and Minnesota Duluth skated to a 5-5 tie.
Spencer centering Shire and Helgeson for Jeff Sauer's Badgers. Beatty centering Drake and Jim Hiller for Northern Michigan. Jeff Simpson seeing his first work on defense in 3 games for Northern Michigan. Paired out there right now with senior Phil Newer. Loose play back into the Northern Michigan zone. Newer picks it up. Clears into center ice. Picked up there by Jim Hiller. Hiller can't control it. Badgers clear it right back to the blue line. Newer intercepts again. Left side pass up for Dallas Drake. Drake tries a nifty move. Poked away from him nicely by Mark Strobel. Plays still loose along the far side boards in the Badgers zone. Hiller tries a centering pass. Drake flattened there. Little interference there, no call. And the Badgers pick up the loose puck and they'll bring it back to center ice. Shire in over the line. And Drake picks up that missed shot and clears it back into neutral ice. Served right back into the Northern Michigan zone by Wisconsin. Played just a little more than 2 minutes here in the opening period. A scoreless tie from Lakeview Arena. Simpson across ice to Newer. Newer just clears it back down into the Wisconsin zone. Chris Nelson takes a bump back there. Puck loose along the near side boards again, out into center ice. And taken by Jason Hare at his own blue line. Hare flips it back into the Wisconsin zone. Penalty call coming up, and looks like a holding call by Brian Ritchie, and we'll see whom this is on. Northern Michigan.
Well, there were 26 of them last night. We'll have the first one tonight, and that will go against Steve Woog in his 2nd game of the season. Here you see Woog going down into the corner and taking out his Badger opponent.
Buffet, Zabo, Garrett McDonald, and Jason Hare, the penalty-killing team in front of Corwin Sardiff. Brett Kurtz to take the face-off for Wisconsin. Jason Zent on one side, and Blaine Moore on the right wing. Richter in his own zone for Wisconsin, brings it back through center ice. Richter with a head of steam and over the Northern Michigan line. Richter puts on the brakes in the far side corner, still controls that loose puck. Moore has it back to the blue line. Kurtz turns away. Richter from the blue line again, moving in. Quick shot right on. Sardiff to save. Rebound. Kurtz right back into Sardiff, who, falling down, has it roll underneath him. And a little bit of luck there from the Wildcat freshman.
And a little scuffle between Jason Zent of the Wisconsin Badgers. And again, Garrett McDonald and Tony Zabo having words for the Wildcats. But Corwin Sardiff down on the ice, and the Badgers shot it right into his belly. And we still have goose eggs on the scoreboard.
We had Jeff Sauer lamenting about the lack of team scoring, and their leading scorer, Doug McDonald's only played 6 games, and he's out till January. And right there is probably an opportunity that should have resulted in a Badger goal.
Well, Chris Tucker's played in 11 games, 5 more than Doug McDonald, and he just last night with an assist tied McDonald for the team lead in scoring.
Tucker out there now for Wisconsin. And he'll be centering Jason Francisco. John Helgeson also on the front line for Wisconsin. Chris Nelson and Brian Rafalski on the blue line. Francisco dumps it around in behind the cage. Helgeson gets it back along the far side boards. Cross ice pass attempt broken up the first time. Badgers control, pass intercepted, and Sukharov backhands it the length of the ice. 1:10 left in Woog's holding penalty. Wisconsin with the opening period power play opportunity. Drake turns back the Badger player. Wisconsin now clears the zone. Rafalski into center ice for Helgeson. Helgeson in over the Northern Michigan line. Drop pass Francisco. Francisco in the circle. Centering pass out into the slot area. Back on the blue line. Nelson. Francisco to Rafalski. A quick shot that's deflected wide of the goal by Helgeson. Tucker across, and Francisco's backhand shot goes wide. Cats clear the puck down the ice. Little interference at the Wisconsin or the Northern Michigan blue line once again. And Brian Ritchie looking the other way. Wildcats regain the puck in their own zone, and Jason Hare will clear at the length of the Lakeview ice surface with 20 seconds remaining in Woog's minor penalty. Badgers once again with Richter through center ice, backing over the line for Brett Kurtz. Kurtz takes a look, tries to throw it across rink wide, intercepted by Northern Michigan. Hare to Buffet, and Mark will clear it down the ice. Wildcats coming back to full strength right now as Steve Woog comes back from the penalty box. Dirksen almost mishandled that puck. Hustling after it was Zabo. Will make that Buffet. And Buffet almost took it away from the Wisconsin goaltender. Badgers try and set it up. Nearing the 5-minute mark in the opening period, Tom McCord along with Dave Dennis. No score, Wisconsin, Northern Michigan from Lakeview Arena. Dan Plott backing over the line, snaps a shot, and Sarda with the glove hands going to flag that one down, and again, hang on.
Dan Plott of the Wisconsin Badgers, number 32, a sophomore from Hayward, Wisconsin, 5'11", 208-pounders. Definitely one of the Badgers' more aggressive players.
Well, as you mentioned in last night's hockey game, he's the young man that ran Bill Pye last year, the first time back in this arena after the playoff over in St. Paul the previous season. And he doesn't really have a big fan club around here, I don't think.
Not unless they're wearing red and white.
And there are a few loyal Wisconsin supporters in the crowd, as always. Very vocal crew that does come. Newer turns away from the check-in behind his own goal. Clears a pass for Hiller. Hiller, center ice for Dallas Drake, broken up nicely. Fairchild almost had an opportunity for Wisconsin, but Scott Beatty comes back the other way. Beatty in over the Wisconsin line, in behind the Badger goal. Beatty sets up shop back behind the red line, and now into the near side corner, centering pass across. Newer from the blue line, snaps one, right on, rebound, Beatty, backhanded it wide. Puck still loose deep in the Wisconsin zone. Jimmy Hiller being grabbed and held down there. Drake bumps his man, and we've got a holding call coming up on Wisconsin.
That'll give the Wildcats their first power play of the night. Last night, the Cats none too successful. The Badgers were 0 for 10. The Wildcats were just 1 of 9 with the extra attacker last night. Tonight, the first Badger penalty will go to Mark Strobel, a freshman from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Once again, the Beatty, Hiller, and Dallas Drake line putting on the pressure in the Wisconsin zone. And I'll tell you what, Phil Newer had a goal last week in the Denver series, and his eyes had to be about as big as $half to get that puck where he did down here deep in the Wisconsin zone.
Scott Beatty had a lot of open net to shoot at on the rebound and just missed everything.
Wildcats will set up on the power play. 14:23 remaining in the opening period. Jason Hare, Mark Buffet will be on the blue lines. Face off. Hare at the blue line, takes a look, gets it across to Mark Buffet. Buffet winds it up, whips one, and that missed everything. Play loose into the near side corner, picked up by the Badgers and cleared down the ice right on goal. And Mark Buffet will pick it up and start back for Northern Michigan. Long lead pass in over the line. Mike Harding tries to step around. He's taken to the ice. Good defensive play there by Wisconsin. Northern Michigan controls back onto the blue line. Mark Buffet, he'll wind it up again, and that hit a skate out front of the cage. That one off the skate of Mike Harding. Play still loose deep in the Wisconsin zone. Jimmy Hiller in behind the goal, centers a pass out. That's intercepted by the Badgers' Spencer, and once again cleared down the ice. Sardiff, a long lead pass up ice. Mark Buffet in over the Wisconsin line. Scott Beatty brings it out into the high slot area. Beatty gets it across to Hare. He'll fire one, and that missed everything way wide. Buffet tries to hold it along the far side, picked up by Moore, and he's going to backhand it down the ice. A minute to go in the minor penalty on the Badgers. Jason Hare all kinds of tied up by Brett Kurtz deep in the northern Michigan zone. Jeff Simpson covers up but leaves a pass back for Dallas Drake. Dallas brought to the ice, a long shot from the blue line, sticked aside by Sardiff. Jason Hare near side corner will put it back in behind his own goal where Jeff Simpson's going to try and set things up. 35 seconds left in the Wisconsin penalty. Simpson weaves his way through center ice. Pass up Tony Szabo. Szabo into the center, takes the return pass from Rifflinger. In behind the Wisconsin goal, Szabo once again tries to wrap it around the side. And down on top, loose puck. All around the Wisconsin goal. Dirksen can't find it. And he's lost his stick. Now he picks it back up, and the Badgers clear back into the northern Michigan zone. 10 seconds left in the minor penalty on Mark Strobel as the Wildcats have one last opportunity through center ice. The Badgers are back at full strength. In behind his own goal, Chris Nelson loses the puck back onto the blue line. Simpson, far side corner, northern Michigan in control. Rafalski bumps his man off the play. That's Riplinger, and carrying out for Wisconsin into center ice was Helgeson. Down behind the play, a pile up for players, and has play been whistled down? I guess it has.
Well, Ripplinger's looking for a penalty to be called against the Badgers, but he's not going to get any sympathy from Brian Ritchie. Ripplinger taken down behind the play. And obviously about 3,500 Wildcat fans already had that call made. Ritchie now conferring with Dan Kelly, the linesman, as to what went on behind the play. So we'll see if any input from Dan Kelly, check that Mark Niebel, will influence Brian Ritchie, and I think it's going to.
Looked like it did.
I need 3 red for roughing. 2 minutes.
Rafalski will go off for roughing.
Jeff Sauer's not going to be too happy with that one.
Sauer wanting an explanation from Brian Ritchie. But Niebel did see what went on behind the play, and as a linesman, he can't call that penalty, but he certainly does have the latitude to report it to the referee.
And the discussion down at the Wisconsin bench. And when play resumes, Northern Michigan will have their second power play of the evening.
Well, Ritchie is explaining to Jeff Sauer that the linesman can report the infraction, and Sauer's not buying any of it. And the Cats will be on their second power play of the night.
Harding, Hiller, and Scott Beatty up front for the Wildcats. Jason Hare, along with Mark Buffet, will be on the blue line. Beatty picks up the pass in center ice, carries down into the Wisconsin zone. Beatty pulls up top of the circle, still battling for that puck. Play loose down in behind the goal. Wisconsin will gobble that one up and skate back through center ice. Badgers just ragging the puck at the northern Michigan line, and finally Nelson flips it deep into the Wildcat zone with 1:25 left in Rafalski's roughing penalty. Mark Buffet's lead pass way too far. Nelson again will intercept and clear it back into the NMU zone. Mark Buffet starts out Beatty. Scott Beatty, the WCHA's most valuable player last season, clearing deep into the Wisconsin zone. Jim Hiller battling for it. Beatty picks it up. Scott Beatty around into the far side corner. Beatty top of the circle, back to Buffet on the blue line. Buffet across the Hare Hill one time. Loose puck right in front of the goal. Knocked down by Nelson. Picked up by Wisconsin, and they'll clear back through center ice. And now we've got another whistle in behind the play, and Jimmy Hiller tied up in behind the Wisconsin goal.
Well, Nelson did a nice takedown on Hiller in behind the Badger net, and again the Wildcat faithful making the call. But it's that man's job, and if he don't think so, it don't happen.
Oh, boy.
I got 7 red, 2 for roughing.
Jeff Sauer's going to be livid down there now.
Joe Harwell will go off.
Ritchie didn't call that one either, did he? I didn't see his hand go up.
Well, whoever called it, the Wildcats will have a two-man power play for the next 44 seconds. And Jeff Sauer is out in the door of his bench, voicing his opinion.
And Brian Ritchie discussing matters with alternate captain Brett Kurtz just outside the Wisconsin blue line.
9:11 the time of the Badger penalty. Joe Harwell. Sauer still waiting patiently.
If that's the look of a patient man, I don't know.
Patience is probably wearing a little thin just 10 minutes into the hockey game.
Oof.
He's just got himself too.
No, it doesn't look that way. The way they were calling bench minors earlier this season, it's almost a surprise, but maybe Brian Ritchie does have a little bit of heart left.
Well, I think he probably gave him a warning, and next time.
That could be. Wildcats with a big opportunity here. 41 seconds of a two-man power play advantage. Cats try and set up shop in the Wisconsin zone. Loose puck, Frederick gets it back to the blue line. Sukharov off to Dallas Drake. Back to Sukharov again. He'll fake a shot into the circle. Beatty back to Sukharov. Drives one, and that got blocked nicely out front by Kurtz. Beatty again in the circle. Holds it. Back to Sukharov. Sukharov fakes it. Gets it off to Drake. Back to Sukharov again. He'll wind it up, and that got deflected high up over the glass and into the crowd. Either off the stick of Kurtz or off the stick of Chris Nelson.
14 seconds remain in the two-man advantage for the Cats. They'll have one more chance with the face-off down to the right of Dirksen. I think another thing Jeff Sauer may have been telling the referee, Brian Ritchie, is first you let the linesman make a call, now you let the crowd make it. Some more scores last night. CCHA was Michigan over Illinois Chicago. Michigan State beat Western in overtime. Lake Superior 5-1 winner over Miami, and Ferris State beat Ohio State by a score of 5-2. Northern Michigan men's and women's basketball teams opening up successfully today. The women beating Wisconsin Parkside 95-69. The men 97-62 over Michigan Dearborn.
Shot wide of the Badger goal. Still 7 seconds remaining in a two-man power play advantage. Mark Buffet at the blue line gets it down. Beatty in the circle. Hiller back to Beatty in the circle again. Badgers get a man back. Play whistle down, and we've got a Wildcat in the crease, and the face-off will come back into center ice. Tough break for Northern Michigan there with the man in the crease. They were moving in tight on Dwayne Dirksen, and the Wisconsin player was still not back in the play from the penalty box.
That also, like you mentioned, does kill off the remainder of the two-man advantage, so now it's just one man for the next minute 15.
Nearing the midway point of a scoreless first period this evening from Marquette. Beatty remains out, centering a line of Hiller and Mike Harding. And a couple of wide bodies to run things in front of the Wisconsin goal. Sukharov to Harding. He'll clear it down into the Badger end. Dirksen holds it up. Rafalski rifles it around the boards past Mark Buffet. And Corwin Sardif plays it in behind his own goal. 50 seconds left in the minor penalty to Joe Harwell. Wildcats move forward with Sukharov. Pass for Harding taken away, and Kurtz will take his turn and rifle this one the length of the Lakeview ice surface. Sukharov again deep in his own zone for Ripplinger in center ice. That pass intercepted. Dallas Drake has the loose puck. Drake turned back nicely by Jamie Spencer. Drake deep in his own zone, passed it to Sukharov, and Sukharov was almost in the crease. Play loose in center ice. Szabo has it roll off the heel of his stick, and Wisconsin looks like they're going to do an excellent job finishing off this penalty kill. Wildcats with time to move it up one more time before the Badgers get back to full strength. 3 seconds remaining in the penalty as Sukharov takes it through center. Loses control as Wisconsin is back at full strength. Puck cleared deep into the Northern Michigan zone. Jason Hare for Dallas Drake. Drake backhands it into center ice for Ripplinger. Back for Szabo. Szabo in over the line, winds it up, and that got blocked by Chris Nelson in front of Dwayne Dirksen. Szabo turned around, upended. Puck rifled around the near side boards by Wisconsin. Wildcats hold it momentarily deep in the zone. Northern Michigan now in control and behind the goal. Centering attempt is knocked down out front of the net by Sanderson. Bumped into the near side corner. McDonald will hold, and a penalty call coming up behind the play, and this will probably be on Northern Michigan.
Well, they have both penalty doors open, so we may get
Red
2 and 2.
12 white, 2 each for roughing.
Dan Rojo will go for the Wildcats for roughing. And
eight red.
it'll be Chris Nelson going off for the Wisconsin Badgers, so we'll have 4-on-4 hockey for the next 2 minutes.
Take a look and see if we can catch what happened back in behind the Wisconsin goal. There we are. A little skirmish going back there, right there. There's another one.
Nelson took Rojo into the boards hard with an elbow, and Rojo retaliated. And they both go.
Wayne Moore and Dan Plant up front for Wisconsin. Rafalski and Barry Richter back on the blue line. Richter, the junior from Madison, Wisconsin. 31 career goals, including one last night in the series opener. Wildcats win the face-off. Long clearing shot into Dirksen is whistled down on the offside, and the face-off back into center ice.
Chris Nelson in the penalty box for the Badgers, senior defenseman from Los Angeles, California. 1 goal, 3 assists so far this year. 30 points on the career for Chris Nelson.
Hiller and Beatty up front, Dameworth and Sukharov on the blue line. You would think in the 4-on-4 situation, the advantage might go to Northern Michigan, especially with a pair of snipers like Beatty and Hiller out there. Sukharov in his own zone, across ice to Dameworth. He just deflects it out to center ice, taken there by Rafalski. Loose puck intercepted by Beatty. He carries back into the Wisconsin zone. Centering pass intercepted by Blaine Moore, and he'll just kind of stroll with it in behind his own goal. Clearing pass, Rafalski. Rafalski up through center ice. 2-on-2, plot the trailer, loose puck in the zone, intercepted by Dameworth, clearing pass to Hiller, up to Beatty. Beatty and Hiller, 2-on-3. Beatty made it over the line, but lost the puck. The Badgers regained control. Long center ice pass, picking it up is Tucker. Tucker on the back end, drop pass. Oh, that hit the crossbar, I think. That puck, I think, hit the crossbar, Dave, and the Wildcat goal. Backing over the line, Dallas Drake has it roll off the end of his stick, and Wisconsin again regains control, down to 7:05 left in the opening period. Long lead pass backing over the line. Wisconsin a centering pass. Sarduff went down. The puck came out the other way, and the Wildcats got a break on that one. Joe Frederick charges back in over the line. Taken away from him, Frederick upended. Crowd hollering once again. Dallas Drake has the loose puck in center ice. Taken by Harwell. Now loose back to the Wisconsin line, and coming forward with it is Mark Strobel. Strobel dumps it over the line for Jason Zent. Zent puts on the brakes, fires one way wide of the Wildcat goal. Harwell holding at the blue line down into the near side corner. Harwell battling for the puck there with Phil Sukharov. Sukharov has been coming on the last couple of weeks in his play after a slow start for the Wildcat senior. Play whistle down on the icing call with 6:19 left in the opening period.
Yeah, you were right, Tom. That shot did hit the crossbar in behind Corwin Sarduff. Kind of seemed like it caught him by surprise, but the Wildcats were able to recover. And there you see Dallas Drake. I think he was just tired on that last one and said, let's ice it and get a breath.
I'm thinking that might have also maybe caught a piece of Sarduff's goal equipment. I never did hear a clang of any kind on the pipe, but it sure did look like it bounced off.
Took a couple of funny caroms.
Face off to Sarduff's right side. That's his blocker side in the Northern Michigan zone. 8 seconds remaining in the minor penalties to both teams. Buffet controls the face off. Simpson clears it around for Phil Newer up the far side boards. Both teams back at full strength. Mark Buffet pulls up slot area, shot it just wide of the goal. Dirksen kicks it back in behind the cage. Lead pass up for Andy Shire. He clears it back out into center ice where Newer stands up his man right at the red line. Tips it forward to Mike Harding. Harding has it roll off the end of his stick. Badgers regain control with Rafalski. He'll clear it down into the Northern Michigan zone. Big hit right there in the center ice zone as Harding sent Rafalski to the ice. Play flipped across ice into the far side corner by Helgeson. Control by Newer. He tries to clear the zone, fails to do so. Shot goes wide of the Wildcat goal. Tony Szabo, first person there, chips it back out in the center ice for Mark Buffet. Buffet in over the Wisconsin line, tries to get around Rafalski, who came back and made a good defensive play for Wisconsin. Rafalski deep in his own zone. Center ice pass, gets away from the Badger. And Garrett McDonald gives chase in his own zone. McDonald takes the slash, gets it forward to Steve Wu, cleared right back into the Northern Michigan end where Jason Hare will pick it up. Nearing the 15-minute mark of a scoreless opening period from Lakeview Arena. Kurtz the centering pass out front of the goal. Loose puck, and that got fired just wide of the goal by Blaine Moore. Failing to hold it at the blue line was Jeff Sanderson, but he does get it across ice, and the Badgers clear it right back in. A bouncing shot that Sardif's going to hang on to.
Taking a look at the standings in the Western Collegiate Hockey Association after last night's games. There you see a three-way tie at the top between the Golden Gophers of Minnesota, the Wisconsin Badgers, and the NMU Wildcats. The Badgers, of course, having played 2 more games than Northern. Then Minnesota Duluth, a point behind at 11. They had a tie last night. Michigan Tech was beaten, and they're in 5th place with 9 points, followed by North Dakota, CC, St. Cloud, and Denver.
Tell you, it's kind of tough to figure out the Michigan Tech North Dakota game. The Fighting Sioux have been struggling a little bit. Michigan Tech have been pretty darn hot. They meet up in the Copper Country, and the Sioux really waxed them 6-1 last night. Play deep in the Badger zone. Scott Smith, far side corner, tries to reverse it back. Tries to get away back there from Jeff Sanderson. Sanderson, and the Badgers finally regain control. Held at the blue line by Sukharov, though. Cleared back in behind the cage again. Loose puck. Scott Smith tries to force it out in front of the cage. Turn back. In behind the goal, Joe Frederick tips it back for Scott Smith. Smith steps over a fallen Frederick, and we've got a penalty call coming up, and that should go against the Badgers.
15:52 the time of the call, and it will be Chris Nelson with his 2nd consecutive trip to the penalty box. Going off for hooking. So the Cats will be on the power play for the 4th time tonight, the 13th time in the series. They've only scored once.
Wildcat line working hard in the Wisconsin zone. Smith and Frederick in behind the cage. There goes Frederick to the ice, and that's the penalty call right there on Chris Nelson. It's kind of surprised to see that Chris Nelson hadn't been drafted by anybody in the NHL. Got some good size.
Nelson at 6'2", 190. And he is a senior. Maybe sought after as a free agent.
Played in 112 games for Wisconsin. Tonight's number 113. Wildcats on the power play. Got a couple of good opportunities here in the opening period. Scott Beatty gets it down low for Hiller. Back to the blue line. Sukharov moves in right on, and Dirksen turns that away. Sukharov again from the blue line. Fakes a shot, tries to dump it down in deep into the Wisconsin zone. Drake gets it in behind the goal for Hiller. Off to Scott Beatty, back on the blue line, Mark Buffet. Buffet winds it up right on again. Dirksen to save. Beatty cruises in, and his shot turned away by Brett Kurtz. Good defensive job by Kurtz, the senior from Joliet, Illinois. Northern Michigan with Hiller backing over the line. Jimmy winds it up and whips it wide. Rebound comes all the way back off the end boards, back through center ice. Drake cross ices it. Beatty tries to get it back into the zone, regains control at the blue line. 1:10 as Beatty's pass back to Mark Buffet, hopped over Buffet's stick. And Sukharov tries to push it forward. Can't do so. Drake gets it across ice. Scott Beatty brings it into the zone. Beatty top of the circle, blisters one right on, and Dirksen was handcuffed on that one. Badgers clear it down the ice with 50 seconds left in Nelson's minor penalty. Jason Hare will set things up in behind his own goal with 2:50 left in the opening period. Ripplinger through center ice. Brent Ripplinger over the Wisconsin line. Ripplinger winds it up. Oh, and Dirksen got a piece of that, and it deflected up over the glass and into the crowd.
A couple of good scoring opportunities for the Wildcats on the power play. The last one there for Brent Ripplinger, the freshman from Williams Lake, BC. Tonight's game brought to you in part by Togo's, with 2 locations in Marquette on 3rd Street and their new location in Harvey.
At Togo's for dinner tonight. Good job as always by those Togo's folks. Still a half a minute to go in the Wildcat power play. Play up against the near side boards, deep in the Wisconsin zone. Mike Harding battling for it down there with Ripplinger. Wildcats come away, side of the goal. Ripplinger overskates it. Hare a blast, and that got deflected wide of the Wisconsin net. Jason Hare pinches down. Rafalski picks it up and rips it around the end boards all the way into the Wildcat zone. And that should just about kill off that Wisconsin penalty on Chris Nelson. Ripplinger dumps it forward for Mike Harding in the Wisconsin zone. Harding tries to pull up, takes a ride from Kurtz in the far side corner. Badgers back at full strength. This play is whistled down, and the faceoff will stay in the Wisconsin zone.
Pile up in the corner to the right of Dwayne Dirksen. You see Corwin Sardiff. If you like watching Billy Pye handle the puck last year, Corwin Sardiff, much in the same mold, likes to pass it up ahead, up to center ice, and he's already got 2 assists this year.
Well, congratulations going out to the Lake Linden football team. They were victorious this afternoon, or late this morning, in the NMU Sports Complex. 22-12 over McBain. Also, congratulations to Dick Koski's Negaunee Miners, a 32-23 winner over Parchment. Quick shot, that just sails wide of the Northern Michigan goal. Frederick tips it forward, takes a heavy hit there from the Badger defenseman Sanderson. Loose puck knocked down in center ice. And Frederick runs into John Helgeson that time and took another seat on the ice.
Minute 43 seconds to go. No score in the first period. Both teams doing a good job in their own zone. Both teams have had some scoring opportunities, but they're not getting a lot of second and third chances. And if the goalie can stop the first shot and the defense can clear the puck, it's going to stay down and be a low-scoring hockey game.
Well, with all the power play opportunities Northern Michigan's had in the opening period, the Wisconsin penalty kill unit has certainly done an excellent job in front of Dwayne Dirksen. Dirksen's had a couple of tough saves and was really handcuffed on that last blast by Beatty a couple minutes ago. Scott Beatty, the Wildcat senior, comes back through center ice once again, poked off his stick nicely right at the line by Joe Harwell. Loose puck picked up by Wisconsin. Simpson steps into Nelson, though, and stops his progress right at the Wildcat blue line. Richter across ice to Nelson. Clears it down into the Northern Michigan zone. Phil Newer has to hustle back after it. Clears it for Simpson along the near side boards. Simpson's lead pass intercepted by Nelson at the red line, and Chris is just going to pancake it back into the Northern Michigan zone. Under a minute to go in the opening period, a scoreless tie from Lakeview Arena. Tom McCord along with Dave Dennis bringing you Wildcat hockey on Channel 8. Sarda reverses play back up the near side boards. That shot went off the side of the goal from Jason Zent. Zent had a goal in the hockey game last night for the Badgers. Pass eludes Tony Szabo in center ice. Loose puck right at the blue line. Dallas Drake tries to carry it into the zone. Buffet can't control it. Jason Hare will finally pick it up and flip it into the Wisconsin end. Rafalski's lead pass too far. Played a little scrambly here in the last minute of play. Backing over the line, Szabo blasted it, and he shot it way wide. Loose puck, Harding in the far side. Harding slams it right to the pads, and down on top is Dirksen. And a little scuffle breaking out there with Szabo and Harding right in the middle of things.
Well, somebody took a poke at Tony Szabo, and big Mike Harding stepped right in. Harding standing 6'4" and 221 pounds. Take a look at it on the replay, and there you see Szabo get collared and Harding right in there to protect his buddy.
Well, it's about 6'8" on skates.
Big fella. Tony Szabo, by contrast, 5'9", 170.
13 seconds left in a scoreless first period. For the final 13, Blaine Moore centers Kurtz and Plott for Wisconsin. Beatty between Hiller and Dallas Drake for Northern Michigan. Cats win the face-off. Hiller's shot deflected into the near side corner. Badgers just clear it back into the Northern Michigan zone, and that ought to kill things off in the opening period. An icing call, though, and there's still 4 seconds left to play.
Garrett McDonald, sophomore defenseman from Burnaby, British Columbia, and with the slow start that Phil Sukroff had gotten off to, Garrett has been looked to quite a bit as the leader of the Wildcat defense here this season.
Very intense individual back on the Wildcat blue line. Wildcats positioning themselves for possibly one last shot. Beatty set up in the high slot area. Puck not dropped fairly. We'll try it once again. Still 4 seconds to play. Drake and Moore on the faceoff. Once again, everybody jockeying for position. Plott comes into the circle. McDonald there with him. Both of those fellows exchanging 1-2s in the hockey game last night. Wildcats win the faceoff, but the puck comes back to center ice, and that will end the first period of play. And we've had a scoreless tie after 20 minutes of action. 0-0, Wisconsin and Northern Michigan. We'll be back to recap the first period after this timeout on Channel 8.
Do you find yourself in a food rut? Well, get out of a rut with Togo Subs. Togo's has over 40 varieties of subs, hot or cold, all on white or whole wheat bread, baked 7 days a week right in their own bakery. Everybody's got their favorite Togos. Why not come out and try to find your favorite? It may take all year, but think of the fun you'll have. Togo Subs, fast, friendly service for an inexpensive meal in itself. Togo's now with 2 locations, Marquette and their new store in Harvey. AutoWorks of Marquette takes control, featuring the finest German automotive sales and service in northern Michigan. AutoWorks features Porsche, Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and the 4-wheel drive Audi 4 and 5000 S Quattro. If you've always wanted the outstanding quality of German engineering, now's the time to check out AutoWorks in Marquette. And remember to register to win tickets to see the defending national champion hockey Wildcats at Marquette's only German service and sales outlet, AutoWorks.
Back to Marquette's Lakeview Arena, Tom McCord along with Dave Dennis. A scoreless first period of play this evening between the Wildcats and Northern Michigan. And Dave, overall a pretty even first period of play, although the Wildcats, I think, with all the power play opportunities, probably held a little bit of a territorial edge, but still no score.
Well, 10 shots on goal for each team. Dirksen making 10 saves, Sardiff making 10 saves. The Wildcats did have 4 power play opportunities, but like we mentioned, the Badgers doing a good job not letting them get any real sustained pressure in the Wisconsin zone.
Both teams have done well this weekend on their penalty killing opportunities, and the Badgers certainly had a chance to put theirs to work in the opening period.
That they did. 4 times they killed penalties. They killed 8 out of 9 last night, so that's pretty successful. But neither team has had any luck this weekend on the power play.
Both teams had a couple of good scoring opportunities. The Badgers had one with Brett Kurtz deep in the Northern Michigan zone with Sardiff down on the ice, and Kurtz just couldn't raise the puck and put it right back into Sardiff, who was sprawled in front of the Wildcat goal. And then late in that first period, Scott Beatty handcuffed Dwayne Dirksen in the Wisconsin net.
Again, another chance, but Dirksen just got enough of it and wasn't able to get it in the net. We saw a lot of close calls, but a lot of shots that missed the net. It'll be interesting to look at the shot chart when we get it.
A scoreless first period of play. We'll be back with second period hockey action coming up on Channel 8.
Let's hear the sound. I need Amman. I need Saudi Arabia.
The air raid sirens are just now going off here near these U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia. We sent the entire camera crew
Back here.
inside right now.
I wonder if you could tell us.
Where would coverage of the Gulf War have been without cable? Cable companies like yours have paid more than $1 billion to CNN so you can get comprehensive news 24 hours a day.
The liberation of Kuwait has begun.
Cable contributes to life.
That's not the way to get to camp. And that's not. Here's the way in a new Geo Tracker from Fry Chevrolet Geo in Marquette.
It's the lowest price four-wheel drive you can buy. We've got 15 in stock. You can buy one starting at $269 a month. You can lease one as low as $249 a month. We've got 15 in stock. See us now for low-cost four-wheel fun.
Tracker at Fry Chevrolet Geo in Marquette.
Welcome back to Marquette's Lakeview Arena. A scoreless first 20 minutes of action between Wisconsin and Northern Michigan. Tom McCord along with Dave Dennis ringside. And Dave, a lot of opportunities along the lines of power plays for Northern Michigan as we look at the Wisconsin Badgers returning from their locker room.
Well, the Wildcats had 4 power plays in that first period, but looking at the shot chart, they only got 2 shots from in the slot on Dwayne Dirksen in that period. Meanwhile, the Badgers only had 4 on Corwin Sardiff, and we were talking about how many shots missed the net. The Cats missed everything 5 times. The Badgers missed it all 4 times.
Kind of a stylish tie Rick Comley has on tonight.
Well, I'm sure you'll talk to him about that after the game.
Yeah, and then he pops him a couple. That's what I call him. I turned around.
After giving Justin Doherty and myself a little bit of the business for the Style and Ties.
Well, I thought maybe you guys all shopped at the same supermarket or something, but I guess I was wrong.
Well, you know.
We neglected to mention one football score. I guess we're going to look ahead first, though. Next weekend, Northern Michigan at Colorado College, and then 2 weeks from this weekend, St. Cloud State, Craig Dahl's Hockey Club coming here to Northern Michigan to take on the Wildcats, and then a long road trip beginning for Northern Michigan at Minnesota, Mariucci Arena against the Gophers.
Then they'll leave from the Twin Cities to go right out to Anchorage for the Nissan Jeep Classic over the Christmas holidays.
Wanted to mention that final high school football score from this afternoon. It was Coopersville defeating Kingsford by a final score of 24-7. So the Flivers eliminated from further competition in Class B. Once again, though, Negaunee a winner, 32-23 over Parchment, and Lake Linden defeating McBain 22-12 this afternoon at the sports complex here at Northern Michigan University.
So the Miners and Lakes will get to play one more game in the dome, but it'll be a little bit bigger dome down in Pontiac.
The other dome. Jeff Sauer is about ready for second period hockey action, as is Rick Comley and his Wildcats. Here to bring it your way on Channel 8 is Dave Dennis.
Thank you very much, Tom McCord. Surprisingly, we'll start this period with both teams at full strength. The center for the Wildcats will be Mark Buffet with Zabo and Harding, and for the Badgers it'll be Moore, Kurtz, and Flan.
Give him a couple seconds.
It's kind of like the weather around here. We have been informed that it is now snowing in Marquette. It was kind of drizzly, sloppy, snowy, wet, rainy today. I know you guys got it harder up in Ishpeming.
Well, if we get it in Ishpeming, they darn right deserve it in Marquette. Let it snow.
Play in behind the Wildcat net. Garrett McDonald bumped off the puck. He gets it around behind. Comes up to the Wildcat blue line and out just barely. Now over center ice. Buffet is able to dump it in. Dirksen will stop the puck and send it around the boards. Mark Buffet got there first. Harding for Tony Zabo. Tony couldn't get control of it, and Richter had it briefly for the Badgers. Now Tony Zabo looking cross ice for Dan Rojo. Plant intercepted. Brett Kurtz up ice for the Badgers. Knocked off the puck by Chad Dameworth. Dameworth, the freshman from Marquette, had his first collegiate point last night with an assist. Dan Rojo ahead for Scott Smith down into the Badgers zone. Dirksen will fire it all the way around. Sukharov will keep it in for the Wildcats. Scott Smith looking for Danny Rojo. Pass was a little bit high. Rojo just had to knock it down. Badgers break out. Strobel up ahead looking for Jamie Spencer. Stopped at the Wildcat blue line. Helgeson takes
Or cross-check, if you will. Pretty cut and dried at the Wisconsin blue line that time for Mr. Frederick.
The Badgers will be on their second power play of the night. Their 12th of the series. They have yet to score with the extra attacker.
Third penalty call of the evening against Northern Michigan.
Badger power play will include Brett Kurtz along with Blaine Moore and Dan Plant. Barry Richter will be back on the point for the Badgers along with Jason Zent. Faceoff comes out to center ice. Richter for Blaine Moore. Back to Barry Richter. Richter now skating out of his own zone. Headmans the puck too far for Brett Kurtz, and that'll be an icing call against the Badgers. Speaking of Richter, his dad, Pat, is the AD down in Wisconsin. Got to be pretty happy. The Badger football team won today. That's 2 in a row in the Big Ten.
I was kind of pulling for Northwestern in that one, Dave. Tonight's hockey game brought your way in part by Raleigh's Carpet and Furniture, the home gallery. They can make your house a home at Raleigh's in Ishpeming.
Drake will center it up for the Wildcats. With him, Jim Hiller, Jason Hare, and Garrett McDonald. Face off to the left of Dirksen. Drake steers it into the Badger corner where it's taken by Richter. Out at center ice. Kurtz back to Dan Plant. Plant circles in Wildcat territory. Got it over on the left side for Blaine Moore. Moore sends it all the way into the corner. And now it comes back to the point. Richter keeps it in. Tried to get it in front. Shot started with the save. Second attempt by Plant goes wide.
That was close.
Close call for the Badgers. Richter Cross ice again for Kurtz. Shot in the pad, saved by Sardiff, and the Cats will ice it with a minute to go.
So far on this second power play, Dave, the Badgers moving the puck a lot better.
Shot by Plante, pad saved Thorwin Sardiff. And the clearing attempt skips over the stick of Barry Richter.
And that a lot better. What I meant by that is a lot better than they moved in the hockey game last night with the extra man.
Richter up to his own blue line. Dumps it into the Wildcat corner. Sardiff will stop it and fire it. Tried to get it out, got it to the blue line, and it was knocked down with a high stick.
And that'll bring the face-off all the way back into the Wisconsin zone with 27 seconds left in Frederick's penalty for cross-checking for Northern Michigan.
Jeff Sauer, the coach of the Badgers, before that spent some time at Colorado College. He took over the Tiger program when Bob Johnson went to Wisconsin. Followed Badger Bob to the Badger State and eventually took over. And Badger Bob joined the Calgary Flames. Face-off in Badger territory, controlled by Wisconsin. Chris Nelson bounces it off the backboards for Chris Tucker. Tucker up into the center ice area for Rafalski. Rafalski got it to Jason Francisco. He dumped it around behind the Wildcat net. Bumping going along as the Wildcats get it out of the zone. And down to the Badger blue line. Frederick returns to the ice as the Cats have successfully killed the penalty. Sardiff flips it by Helgeson behind the Wildcat net. Sukharov will take it in the corner, got it ahead to McGilvery. That'll be Brent Ripplinger. Got it 2-on-2. Ripplinger winds up in a glove save by Dwayne Dirksen as McGilvery was crashing down on the net.
And Francisco put him on the seat of his pants. And as you pointed out, the Wildcat player sliding right into the Wisconsin goal area.
We are going to have an elbowing penalty. And I believe it will be Jason Francisco.
3:49, the time of the penalty call on John Helgeson, number 10. And the Wildcats will be going on their fifth power play, their first opportunity here in the second period.
Power play for the Wildcats. Dallas Drake, Scott Beatty, Jim Hiller, along with Buffet and Phil Sukharov. To kill the penalty for the Badgers, Chris Nelson. Mike Dewars out, the junior from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. We haven't seen much of him this weekend.
I don't recall calling his number at all in the hockey game last night.
Along with Brett Kurtz and Joe Harwell. Beatty wins the faceoff. Phil Sukharov steers it to Drake. Dallas had a shot and that was kicked out. Mark Buffet. Beatty winds up and a glove save by Dwayne Dirksen, and I don't know how he saw that puck. He had Jimmy Hiller and Chris Nelson blocking his vision, and he just got a piece of it.
Excellent reactions that time by Dwayne Dirksen in the Wisconsin goal. Look at that blast right there. And I think maybe Nelson stepped aside right at the last second as that rocket left the stick of Scott Beatty.
Either that or it's stick your glove out and hope.
Well, that's a lot of hope the way Beatty can shoot the puck. I think he saw it all the way.
Face-off to the right of the Wisconsin net. Beatty and Kurtz. Beatty wins the draw once again, 2 for 2 on this power play. Buffet fakes the shot, slides it to Sukharov. His shot goes wide. Scott Beatty looking for some room to operate. Back to Buffet. He winds up and it's tipped wide. Scott Beatty snaps it, didn't get all of it, and the Badgers able to clear it, but not out. Buffet for Beatty. Beatty puts on the brakes. Buffet for Phil Sukharov. 1:17 remains in the Badger penalty. Sukharov winds up, and that one was tipped just wide. Kurtz couldn't get it out, and finally does. Wildcats still controlling. Now the Badgers. Kurtz over the NMU blue line, and the Cats turn it the other way. 2-on-1. Scott Beatty lets it fly, and that goes wide once again. Cats hitting a lot of boards behind the Wisconsin net on this power play. 50 seconds remain in the Wildcat advantage as the Badgers are able to clear it the length of the rink. Hare in behind Sardoff, starts the break. Up across the red line, and this pass intercepted by Brian Rafalski. Now Hare battling with Rafalski. 22 seconds in the penalty. Ripplinger couldn't handle it at the blue line. Andy Shire got a piece of it. Battle along the boards in front of the penalty box and slipped back into the Wildcat zone with 5 seconds left in the Badger penalty. And the Badgers will now return to full strength, killing off a Wildcat power play for the 5th time tonight. 14:05 to go, second period. Badgers and Wildcats locked in a scoreless draw.
That play offside at the Northern Michigan blue line. Well, coming up, a fun time sponsored by the American Cancer Society. And they're having a millionaire party, Dave, and that's going to be on New Year's Eve, December 31st, beginning at 8:30 out at the Marquette Mountain Ski Lodge. Live entertainment, little casino action there. I guess when you check in, you get $25,000 worth of casino money. And should be a good time on New Year's Eve, sponsored by the American Cancer Society. For ticket information, it's 228-7472.
And we'll all be set in the roaring 20s.
And they were roaring. I wasn't there, though.
I was just about to ask if you remembered firsthand. Phil Newer flips it down in the corner for Rojo. Scott Smith has a chance on the short side. Frederick with the second try. And Dirksen got a pad on that. Another chance. We got a penalty coming up on the Badgers. And I believe it's going to be Jason Zent, a member of the WCHA's all-rookie team last year. Check that. Number 20, Mark Strobel.
Strobel knocked down Joe Frederick right in front of Dwayne Dirksen. And we'll check it out on the replay as Frederick set up shop right here. We'll see 33. Wham! Right to the ice.
That's a penalty.
At least this year it is.
Wisconsin penalty number 20, Mark Strobel.
7th minor penalty called on Wisconsin.
Used to be long ago and far away that to get called for a penalty in front of the net, you had to sever a limb.
Or make an early Red Cross donation.
Power play opportunity number 6 for the Wildcats. Again, Beatty, Hiller, and Drake, along with Sukharov and Mark Buffet. The Badger penalty killing unit will include Mike Dewars and Chris Nelson, along with Barry Richter and Brett Kurtz, as Kurtz goes over and asks Brian Ritchie about the call.
Well, we got half of the Wisconsin Twins set in the penalty box. You know, it's a wonder the Badgers didn't number these guys one number apart and put them on the same line.
Shot by Buffet, kicked out by Dirksen. Now it's Hiller. Facing a challenge from Richter. Hiller again. Gets it to Scott Beatty. Up top for Buffet. Fakes the shot. Beatty. Down low for Hiller. Had it intercepted. Now Buffet will have a chance. For Sukharov, a drive, and that's knocked down in front. Nelson had the puck poked away by Dallas Drake, and finally the Badgers able to clear it as Dewars sends it the length of the rink. Minute 22 left in the Badger penalty as Scott Beatty crosses the Wisconsin blue line. Beatty behind the net for Hiller. Hiller sends it up for Buffet. He got it lost in his skates, and Plot breaks out trying to chase down the rolling puck. Shot and a save by Corwin Sardif, and he goes tumbling into the net underneath Dan Plot.
And the net is off the magnets, and that's why the play has been stopped. And Corwin Sardif that time stood his ground as Dan Plot broke right in after Buffet could not handle that bouncing puck.
Sardif drawing a standing ovation from the Wildcat crowd, and how often do you see it? The puck skips over somebody's stick, and there's somebody else off to the races for the shorthanded team.
Sardif down to make that save, and Plot tumbling into the end boards, taking the net with him. And the Wildcats dodge a bullet there as that man came up with a big save.
Minute 7 in the man advantage for the Wildcats. The Badgers change up their front line on the penalty killing unit. Jamie Spencer along with Plant. Joe Harwell back on defense with Chris Nelson. Simpson having a little bit of trouble getting it out of his own end. He'll give it off to Jason Hare. Up ahead for Zabo. Zabo across the Badger blue line. Back to Hare. He lets one go. It went off the skate of Mike Harding, and the Badgers will break back with it. Nelson gets across the red line and fires it off the boards behind the Wildcat net. Puck flipped across the rink, and now it will be Hare. We'll check that Tony Zabo back for Simpson. Simpson got it up to the Wildcat blue line. Jason Hare over the Badger blue line. Harding down low. Had it taken away by Nelson. Ripplinger gets there. Took a stick in the belly from Chris Nelson. Took a chop back at him. But Nelson able to skate out with it. 3, 2, and 1, and the Badgers have killed another Wildcat power play. Little jostling going on in front of the NMU net as the Badgers control the puck. That's Rafalski. Now it'll be flipped back in by Francisco. Another chance for Francisco, and he shot it wide. Phil Sukharov tried to go off the boards. Danny Rojo in the Badger zone, and the Madison native gets the shot on net. But it was a weak one, and Dirksen covers up.
A look at Dan Rojo, and we'll take a look coming up at next coverage here on Channel 8 of Northern Michigan Hockey, and that'll be when the Huskies from St. Cloud State invade Marquette to take on Rick Conley's Wildcats. December 6th and 7th, 11 p.m. both nights on Channel 8. St. Cloud off to a good start this year.
Not especially.
Well, they're coming on of late.
They did sweep North Dakota, I believe, about a week or two ago.
That's why I was kind of surprised with that North Dakota score last night against Michigan Tech.
But for the Huskies of St. Cloud, they're only 2 victories of the season. They've only played 6 games in the league so far with a 2-4 record.
Well, when you lose a few in a row, a couple victories, and you're on a roll.
That's for sure. Shot by Phil Sukharov was knocked down. He gets a second chance, and Dirksen covers up as Frederick had a poke at the rebound.
Good scoring opportunity that time for Northern Michigan, and Dirksen had to be alert. Tell you something else coming up, Dave. The Marquette Senior High School Band and Orchestra members are going to be selling boxes of navel oranges and grapefruit from Tuesday, November 26th to Friday, December 19th for pickup from the Marquette High School bus garage on Saturday, January 11th. And you can get more information on that by calling 226-3228 or 225-1873 between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m.
Scott Smith will center it up for the Wildcats. He controls it behind the net, and Dirksen will flip it to the other corner. Kurtz tried to get it out, went off a Wildcat skate over to Barry Richter. Richter up across the NMU blue line. He was bumped off the puck, regained possession, but couldn't hang on for long. Cats coming back the other way. Rojo had it knocked away by Rafalski. Play in front of the Wildcat bench as Rafalski had a hang on Scott Smith. And the Badgers send it down the ice, and we'll have an icing call with 10:25 to go here in the second period.
Scoreless tie, 0-0, and a member of the injured Wildcats not in action is Lou Malone, and that's the first time in a long time for Louie that he's been out of action. You know, it looked like last year in that national championship game that he wouldn't even make it onto the ice after being carried off in the semifinals, and he probably hurt that ankle last night blocking that shot in the Northern Michigan zone.
Well, what happened, Lou hurt the left ankle in St. Paul last year. It was the right ankle. He said he kind of got the toe of his skate caught on the ice and twisted her pretty good. McGilvery takes the big bump from Nelson. No penalty coming. McDonald gets the shot. That goes off the stick of Woog. Woog to the wide side of the net. Woog battling with Andy Shire. Finally had it taken away. Shire clears the zone for the Badgers. Icing call coming up against the NMU Wildcats.
Nice standing high jump by Brett Ripplinger as he jumped over a fallen Wildcat and a Badger inside the Wisconsin blue line. Nice move. Chris Nelson, the Badger senior, and there's a look at Brett Ripplinger, the freshman for Northern Michigan, on the Wildcat bench. Walt Kyle standing directly behind Brent.
Face-off will be to Corwin Sardiff's left. Taking the draw for the Badgers will be Jamie Spencer. And for the Wildcats, we'll see Scott Beatty. Shot by Helgeson. That hit his skate and went to the wide side. Drake got it to the blue line and just barely out. The Badgers dump it right back in. Simpson around for Hiller. Jimmy couldn't get a hold of it. Now gets his skate on it and a stick and leads the Wildcat break. Hiller running into all kinds of traffic on his journey down the ice. Dallas Drake now with the puck in the Badger corner. Hiller up for Garrett McDonald. Cross ice for Hare. He got a skate on it, but Helgeson took it away. 2-on-2 for the Badgers. Helgeson, a drive, stopped by Sardiff. Corwin went down, but had enough of the path blocked at Helgeson to send him wide. And the NMU Wildcats will ice it and will get a line change.
Badgers with another good scoring opportunity on Corwin Sardiff. And we're better than halfway through the hockey game here this evening with no score, as both teams will change up a little bit.
Wildcats haven't had a lot of shots at Dwayne Dirksen in this second period. The Badgers, meanwhile, have done a pretty good job getting opportunities at Corwin Sardiff, but he's been equal to the task.
And overall this evening, the Wildcats not having the same quality of shots that they had last night.
Cats having trouble getting the puck out of their own zone. Finally, Buffet up over the Badger blue line trying to cut in. He's ridden off the play by Jeff Sanderson. Buffet with the puck out in front for Szabo! Fourth goal of the year for the senior from Flint, Michigan, and the Cats are on the board.
Excellent piece of work that time by Mark Buffet in behind the goal. Here he's going to set up shop a la Wayne Gretzky back there and threads it through to Tony Szabo, and Tony threads it through to Wayne Dirksen for a 1-0 Wildcat lead.
And if we can get another look at it, if you guys downstairs can freeze it on the goal, you'll see Tony Szabo right in the middle of three Badger defensemen. Nobody took him out. 1-0 Wildcats. We'll see if there's a second assist. Play at center ice. Szabo off the skates of the referee. Jeff Simpson will draw the second assist. And that is Jeff's second of the season. Play at the Wildcat blue line is offside. Phil Newer, the senior defenseman from Park, Minnesota, got his third career goal as a Wildcat last weekend in Denver. .834 remains in the second period. Smith controls the faceoff for the Wildcats. Gets across center ice and sends it into the Badger end. Francisco lost the puck, picked up by Chris Tucker, got it to the blue line. Francisco takes a swipe at it and sends it down behind the Wildcat net. Dameworth played it ahead to Joe Frederick, and Dan Rojo a step ahead of the play offside.
Rojo was breaking down the left wing that time as we look at Danny going back to the Wildcat bench, and Joe Frederick didn't see him initially, and Rojo couldn't quite slow up in time and put himself offside at the Badger blue line.
Wildcats' fourth line will take the ice. Ripplinger with McGilvery and Steve Woog. The Badgers will counter with the Blaine Moore combination, including Brett Kurtz and Dan Plant. Moore wins the faceoff, and it's taken by Mark Strobel. Hare flipped it back into the Badger end. Harwell up ahead for Blaine Moore. Blaine Moore with a shot and a save by Sardiff. Directed it just wide, took a funny bounce off the boards, coming back out in front of the NMU net. But Sardiff was able to get it out of harm's way.
Sardiff looked like he had a couple of words there for Blaine Moore after he unnetted himself in the Wildcat cage. There's a look at that first opportunity, and there's Moore flying into the crease.
Sardiff, the freshman from War Road, Minnesota, record of 6-1 so far in the 91-92 hockey season.
Tell you what, Northern Michigan's had the last two freshmen of the year. Most recently, Tony Szabo, Scott Beatty before that, and the way Mr. Sardiff has started out, you might think that that's a possibility also down the road.
Hiller in front for Scott Beatty. A shot and a save by Dirksen. Another chance for Simpson. And Dirksen able to make another save. 3 incredible saves by the Badger netminder keep the Wildcats from further scoring. Jimmy Hiller battling down low for the Wildcats. Takes a shot and scores. Dirksen got caught a little too deep, not playing the angle well, and Hiller finds the other side of the net, and it's 2-0 Wildcats.
Is Hiller hot or what?
18.
4 goals on the weekend.
Here's a look at it on the replay. The Cats scrumming and mucking down in the Badger zone, and Hiller just picks the long side on Dwayne Dirksen, who just made 3 great saves a moment before. And Jimmy Hiller turns on the red light again, his 4th goal of the weekend.
12:33 the time of the goal. Scott Beatty and Dallas Drake, I believe, will draw the assists. That's 2-0 lead for the Wildcats. Shot on goal, and Sardif will cover it up as Andy Shire charges in on the Wildcat net.
So you're talking to Jim Hiller after the hockey game last night. You know, I asked him how much pain he was in from the partial separation he had of his shoulder. He said not really in any pain. He was saying that the training staff had set him up with what he referred to as some jumbo shoulder pads, and he said he couldn't feel a thing out there.
Maybe he borrowed a pair from Nelson Edmonds.
That could be. Had a chance to meet Nelson last night. He looks like he probably needed a pair of jumbo for the amount of rushing attempts he had.
Chance in front for Helgeson, and Sardif kicks it away. Badgers unable to keep it in. It went over Sanderson's stick. Came back to the Wisconsin blue line. And Wisconsin sends it right back the other way. Sardif plays it off the boards. Andy Shire, the bouncing puck. And that eluded Jamie Spencer. Here comes Chad Dameworth. Dameworth along with Harding, and we've got a penalty coming up on the Wildcats.
20 white, roughing.
And it'll be Mark Buffet going off for roughing.
Only the 3rd power play attempt of the evening upcoming for Wisconsin. Time of the penalty call will be 13:28.
So the Wisconsin Badgers will go on their 7th power play of the night. Or check that 3rd power play of the night. The Cats have had 6.
Tonight's game brought to you by Fry Chevrolet. Make every day a Friday.
I'm sure they're selling some snowplows out there like hotcakes.
I don't know. They still look pretty busy when I went by there this evening.
Dallas Drake will center it up for the Wildcats. Along with him to kill the penalty, he has Jason Hare, Garrett McDonald, and Madison native Joe Frederick.
On a night like tonight, you could probably slide right in there.
Frederick high off the glass. Here comes Dallas Drake, one-on-one. Drake tried to cut to the middle. Good defense by Dan Plant of the Badgers. Kurtz spins away from Drake for Plant. Back into the middle for Jason Zent. Zent takes the drop pass. A shot, and that goes wide. Brett Kurtz goes back down low, and the Badgers do the Wildcats a favor. Hare slaps it back out of the NMU zone. Good penalty killing by Northern. Barry Richter couldn't find it. Tony Zabo had a shot, and Dirksen had to come up with a save. Now it'll be Jamie Spencer, the freshman from Carmel, Indiana. Richter gets it into the slot, but Sukharov is there to clear it. It goes up over the glass, and the faceoff will come back into the Wildcat end to the right of Corwin Sardif.
Still 53 seconds left in the Mark Buffet penalty for roughing as we look at the spectators trying to figure out who's got the puck. Who got it? Guy says, I almost had it right off my fingertips.
I'll tell you, somebody up in the mezzanine last night took one in the chops and had to leave the game a little bit early.
Tell you folks, you got to watch that puck. It's round and it is hard.
McGilvery slaps it down the rink for the Wildcats. And Dirksen will leave it there for Brian Rafalski. Rafalski, the Allen Park native, gets it up ahead to Chris Tucker. Tucker over the Wildcat blue line, down into the corner, sends it around the net for John Helgeson. Helgeson leaves it for Tucker. Out to the point now for Chris Nelson. Shot from the corner by Helgeson. And Sardiff with yet another save. Badgers controlling the puck. John Helgeson flipped it out in the slot. It bounced over the stick of the Wildcats, Bill McGilvery. Badgers retake control. Chris Tucker tried to go in front. And Buffet returns to the ice. Here's a chance for Rafalski, and that's blocked in front. Another shot from Nelson goes wide. 4:23 left, second period. Cats lead the Badgers 2-0. Wisconsin putting some pressure on the Wildcat net. Rafalski with a backhand shot, and that's steered away by Sardiff, and we'll have a penalty coming up again to the NMU Wildcats.
Tell you, Phil Sukaroff saved the day a moment ago in behind Corwin Sardiff as the puck got behind Corwin, and Suki was there to bat it out of the crease with his stick.
Chad Dameworth will go off for the Wildcats, the freshman defenseman, a Marquette native. 6'2", 199-pounder, picked up an assist and played pretty well last night in his debut.
That he did. Played for the Kalamazoo Wings last year, the junior Wings. 15:50 the time of the Dameworth penalty. And that was for interference.
Power play number 4 for Wisconsin.
Back-to-back attempts with the extra man for the Badgers.
A big donut for 13 for UW with the extra man. Drake will kill the penalty for the Wildcats along with Joe Frederick and Garrett McDonald.
Most people like donuts, you know.
Except if they're included in your batting average or scoring percentage.
That's right. Talking about donuts in the world of sports, the most famous comment I can remember was, who was that coach yelling at the referee, have another donut?
A misconduct on 10 White.
Koharski, and Dallas Drake is going to get a misconduct penalty.
I believe it was Jim Schoenfeld.
There you go. That's who it was.
The New Jersey Devils, and
have another donut. A classic moment in sports.
Dallas Drake got a 10-minute penalty for illegal use of the mouth. Said something Brian Ritchie didn't like and gets himself an early trip to the locker room. And he'll be lost for the first 6 minutes or so of the third period.
I guess telling somebody to have another donut isn't a very nice thing to do up in Canada.
Apparently not so here either in Marquette. Buffet will take Drake's place in the face-off circle against Kurtz. And there you see the replay. Drake said something to one of the officials, and it probably wasn't too polite. Frederick with the shot, Dirksen the save. Richter will take it. Richter bumped by Mark Buffet. Buffet kicked it out, but it was picked up there by Blaine Moore. Cross-ice pass for Jason Zent, a little too far, and Hare flips it back in.
The loss of Drake is a big one, though, for Northern Michigan killing penalties. He's got a lot of short-handed goals during his Wildcat career.
6 of them, to be exact. Came up with 4 or 5 last year. Brett Kurtz for the Badgers. Sends it around behind the net for Blaine Moore. Moore for Zent. Dan Plant now with the puck. Richter the slapper, and he got it off the heel of his stick. Not real good wood. He'll have another chance at it. Behind his back for Kurtz. Kurtz the shot wide. Sardiff still down in his net as the puck comes back to the point. Brett Kurtz spins away from Hare. Goes cross-ice for Plant to Barry Richter. Dan Plant took a swipe at it and missed everything. Another shot and a deflection in front, and Sardiff still able to get a pad on it. Now Kurtz with a chance, and Sardiff deflects that one over the net. Amazing play from the freshman goaltender as Zent goes to the ice. Now it'll be Blaine Moore. Wildcats getting sloppy in their own end, and another save by Corwin Sardiff. Cats finally clear the zone with 24 seconds remaining in the penalty to Chad Dameworth. Swiped away at the Wildcat blue line. Jimmy Hiller doing the back checking. Rafalski's pass too far for Helgeson. Puck goes into the Badgers zone. Now it'll be Rafalski again. Up over his own blue line, being watched by Hiller. And we'll have a two-line pass called against the Badgers.
And Northern Michigan back at full strength as Dameworth comes back out of the penalty box, and the Wildcats have killed off the fourth Badger power play opportunity so far tonight.
2:09 remains in the second period. Goals by Tony Szabo, his fourth, and Jim Hiller, his 13th of the season, fourth of the weekend, have given the Cats the lead, and Corwin Sardif has made it stand up.
Sardif got a helping hand a moment ago from Jason Hare in his own zone. I believe it was Hare who got a stick on that right in front of the goal. It deflected that puck up over.
Beatty with Hiller and Bill McGilvery for the Wildcats. McGilvery moving up to fill the void left with Dallas Drake's misconduct. Jeff Simpson and Phil Newer back on defense. For the Badgers, it'll be Chris Tucker along with Jason Francisco and Jason Zent. Harwell and Chris Nelson, the defense. Hiller taking a swipe at the stick as Chris Nelson moving a little too close into the face-off circle.
I think he might have snapped her.
And Chris Nelson will have to remain on the rink.
Official told him it wasn't broke.
And Ritchie giving the business to Jimmy Hiller. So we'll try it again. Tucker centering it up against Beatty to the right of Dwayne Dirksen. Puck is dropped. Beatty kicks it back to Hiller. The shot that hit Dirksen right in the chest. A lot of heavy bumping going as Newer sends the low knuckler on net, and Nelson and McGilvery exchanging pleasantries. And now Helgeson has a greeting for Jim Hiller.
Well, Hiller was coming over to make sure that his teammate McGilvery wasn't being abused, overly abused, to the side of the Wisconsin goal.
He's a freshman. You can abuse him a little, but you can't step over that line.
That's true.
Hiller saying he's our freshman, we'll abuse him. Face-off once again to the right of Dwayne Dirksen. It'll be Jamie Spencer this time taking the draw for the Badgers as Jeff Sauer finally gets the personnel he wants onto the rink.
Good job by Newer a moment ago to get that shot on goal.
I tell you, those low shots that may be a little slower are sometimes more difficult to stop for a goaltender because they can change directions so many times.
Exactly. As long as it's headed in the right direction to start with, a lot of possibilities exist.
Does a lot more good than that big booming slap shot that rings off the glass.
Well, that's a good lesson for the smaller hockey players out there in the audience. Get that puck on the net.
Team's trying to get situated for the face-off, and finally the puck is dropped. Hiller with a shot blocked by Harwell. Wildcats able to keep it in. Scott Beatty saved it at the blue line, but it goes directly to Joe Harwell. Harwell leading in for the Badgers up across the blue line. And we had a Badger in ahead of the play offside.
Way offside that time. Badger player ahead of the play, and that was Jamie Spencer.
Hiller trying to talk to Brian Ritchie. Ritchie kept telling Hiller he had to move farther away from the faceoff, but he wasn't moving Chris Nelson very far, and that's probably what that discussion is about. Faceoff is flipped by the Badgers down into the Wildcat corner. Jeff Simpson will play it. Pass too far ahead for Scott Beatty. Comes back to Chris Nelson. Tried to get it to Helgeson. He couldn't handle the bouncing puck. Beatty has it go off his stick. Badgers turn it the other way. Helgeson dumps it into the corner and takes a poke at Phil Newer. 1:21 to go, second period. Cats lead it 2-0 as McGilvery flips it down to the left of Dwayne Dirksen. Dirksen clears it out to center ice for Andy Shire, just a little too far for Andy. The Cats send her back the other way, nearing the 1 minute mark. Nelson, his pass intercepted by Joe Frederick. Frederick still with the puck, dumps it behind the Badger net for Dan Rojo. Rojo bumped by Harwell. Now Smith and Nelson into the fray. And we've got a player missing a helmet, and Harwell and Dan Rojo are going at it.
Well, it's Joe Frederick, sans the helmet. And Joe offering some complaints to the official across the way about the way he was treated in the Wisconsin zone. Almost lost the hat a moment ago down to the Northern Michigan end also.
Well, he can make his point, but he better not be too strong about it or he'll be sitting next to Dallas Drake pretty quickly. 52 seconds remain. The Cats leading on goals by Jim Hiller and Tony Szabo. And Frederick and Brian Ritchie still discussing matters. And now Ritchie's not going to allow the attempted change by Jeff Sauer. If you are the visiting team, you only get one change. The home team gets the last line change.
Now the Badgers got 9 players on the ice right now. Somebody's got to leave.
I seem to recall Jeff Sauer doing this once or twice last year.
Tell you, the longest game I had up here last year was when the night Doug Wu kept changing goaltenders down here.
We didn't know who was in net.
We had our choice of 2.
And usually we were wrong. Well, the Badgers have decided who they want on the rink. Play down in the corner. Mark Buffet trying to get a hold on the puck. He's sandwiched, and we got a penalty coming up against the Badgers.
Now everybody was doing a little clutching and grabbing down there that time, and finally, Brian Ritchie saw something.
Well, what he saw was a hold. And we'll wait to find out who was the guilty party. We'll take a look at the replay. Buffet gets sandwiched, and Jason Zent,
well, there's holding going on right there,
is the man who will go off. He was the second man in for the Badgers.
And there was holding going on the other far side corner.
Wisconsin penalty number 11, Jason Zent. 2 minutes for holding.
7th power play opportunity for the Wildcats. 0 for 6 tonight. 36 seconds remain in the second period. Beatty, Hiller, Frederick, and Sukharov along with Buffet. Buffet for Sukharov, had it picked off by Chris Nelson. Nelson in on the Wildcat net. Sukharov with the sliding attempt, but Nelson able to get it by Corwin Sardif, and it's 2-1, a shorthanded goal for Chris Nelson.
Excellent effort that time by Nelson as Buffet made the errant pass. And it was off to the races for the Wisconsin senior. Right here, there he goes. And Sardif coming out to meet him, now moving back, and he tucked it in the short side up against the goal post.
Well, it was Mark Buffet, not Sukharov, back checking on the play. And I think that Buffet got a piece of that puck. And he might almost have been better off just to let Sardif handle the breakaway. But as Buffet was sliding in, the shot by Nelson did get a bit of Mark Buffet's stick and finds the back of the Wildcat net.
Unassisted, shorthanded goal for Chris Nelson.
18:34, the time of the score for the Badgers. And Jimmy Hiller will send that one into the clarinet section of the Wildcat band up above the Badger net. Big goal for the Wisconsin Badgers. They're down 2-0, not able to put a lot of pressure on. And they come up with the goal. Now they potentially go into the locker room with a little bit of momentum.
Francisco right now in center ice, doing a little bit of talking with Jim Hiller. Just got to look at Jason Zent across the way, still sitting out his minor penalty. Now Wisconsin, Dave, right where they want to be late in the second period, down 2-1.
19 seconds left as Beatty gets it into the Badger end. Nelson will turn and fire. Beatty keeps it in. Gets it down low. Nelson couldn't get a stick on it. Joe Frederick for Hiller. Hiller up high for Buffet. He lets the drive go, and Dirksen kicked it away. 2 seconds, 1 second, and that will do it for period number 2. With the score, the Northern Michigan University Wildcats 2 and the Wisconsin Badgers 1.
Do you find yourself in a food rut? Well, get out of a rut with Togo Subs. Togo's has over 40 varieties of subs, hot or cold, all on white or whole wheat bread, baked 7 days a week right in their own bakery. Everybody's got their favorite Togos. Why not come out and try to find your favorite? It may take all year, but think of the fun you'll have. Togo Subs, fast, friendly service for an inexpensive meal in itself. Togo's now with 2 locations, Marquette and their new store in Harvey.
Hi, I'm Neil Jandrin.
And I'm Kathy Jandrin. And we'd like to welcome you to Marquette's most complete jewelry store, Jandrin's Fine Jewelry.
At Jandrin's, we have the largest selection of stone rings in Upper Michigan, gold chains priced by gram weight, a great inventory of diamonds over 1 carat, and we're the area's only Swarovski crystal dealer.
And Jandrin's also has in-store watch and jewelry repair, along with engraving.
So for beautiful jewelry at a price you can always afford, come to Marquette's most complete jewelry store, Jandrin's Fine Jewelry in the Westwood Mall, Marquette.
Welcome back to Marquette's Lakeview Arena. 2-1 after 40 minutes of play between Northern Michigan and Wisconsin. Tom McCord along with Dave Dennis. And Dave, the Badgers coming back shorthanded late in that second period to narrow the margin to 1 goal. The Badgers in a pretty good position right now.
Boy, the Cats had an excellent opportunity with that power play late in the period to go up 3-0. And they're unbeatable when they take a lead into the third period. But the Badgers coming back, they get that shorthanded goal. Chris Nelson breaking in. And all of a sudden, it's a different ball game. But the Wildcats 38-0-3 in their last 41 when taking a lead into the third period. So it'll be tough for Wisconsin.
Well, after the first period, we had a scoreless tie, and then Tony Szabo put Northern Michigan on the board. Jim Hiller followed shortly after that with a goal, his 13th of the season, and Jimmy's just been on fire for the Wildcats.
Well, Jimmy had 8 points last weekend out in Denver, and he now has 4 goals on the weekend. So 12 points in 2 weeks after coming off a shoulder separation. Not too shabby.
Well, we should have an exciting third period to bring your way, and we'll do so shortly after this timeout on Bresnan's Channel 8.
Good morning, USA.
Ever notice how some morning news shows seem to give you everything but the news?
Big events happening overseas, but first...
Is your pet psychic? We'll find out.
Plus, we'll go live to that big potato skin festival in...
This is Gary, who's filling in for Sandy, who replaced Tracy's replacement, Judy.
So if you think morning news should be more news and less...
We're just one big happy family.
There's CNN Headline News. The latest news, business, and sports around the clock.
Welcome back to Marquette's Lakeview Arena. Tom McCord along with Dave Dennis between periods 2 and 3, a 2-1 score. Northern Michigan with the 1-goal edge over Wisconsin.
Wildcats getting goals from Tony Szabo and Jim Hiller. The Badgers countering a shorthanded goal for Chris Nelson with just 26 seconds remaining in the period. Saves the period. Dirksen had 17 for the Badgers. Corwin Sardis had 10. As we look at the summary, the scoring summary, Tony Szabo got the Wildcats on the board first at 11:05 from Mark Beaufait, and Jeff Simpson will take a look at it here on the replay as Beaufait does a great job of picking up the puck again behind the Badger net, and you see Tony Szabo right here as he scores. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 Badgers all around him. Nobody's done anything to move Tony Szabo out of that area, and it's 1-0 Wildcats.
Heck of a pass that time also from Mark Beaufait.
Then Jimmy Hiller just a minute 28 later from Drake and Scott Beatty, his 4th of the series. 13th on the season, and Chris Nelson at 19:34.
Well, Jimmy kind of picked the long side on Dwayne Dirksen. It looked like Dirksen was too far back in the goal crease area. And then the giveaway at the blue line when the Wildcats had the extra man, and Nelson just broke right in. You thought maybe Buffet got a piece of it. I'm not really sure.
So maybe we'll get to take another look at that one later in the, maybe at the end of the game if it becomes relevant. But anyway, it's the NMU Wildcats leading the Badgers by a score of 2-1 as Wisconsin returns to the ice.
Well, the Badgers, right where they want to be after 40 minutes of play. They're right in the midst of the hockey game. And that late goal by Nelson, we'll see what kind of an effect that has on the Badgers here in the third period.
There you see this afternoon's football playoffs at the NMU Sports Training Complex in the Dome. Lake Linden and Negaunee will head down to the Silver Dome. Lake Linden 22-12 over McBain. Negaunee 32-23 over Parchment. The Kingsford Flibbers were beaten by Coopersville, 24-7.
Now, both those two teams play in that other dome next Saturday, right?
That's for certain.
A look at the Wildcats gathering around Corwin Sardif. The Badgers at the other end of the ice are doing the same around their goaltender, Dwayne Dirksen. You know, Dirksen's played probably about the best I've seen him play during his career at Wisconsin.
Well, he hasn't had much success against the Wildcats, but between him and Corwin Sardif, they're putting on a goaltending clinic. You can become a Bleacher Creature, join the NMU Bleacher Creature fan clubs. You can sign up at any NMU athletic event, or you can get more information by calling the athletic department at Northern Michigan University. The Badgers will start out the period with the man in the penalty box. Dallas Drake will be off serving a misconduct for the Wildcats. It's an NMU power play, and to bring it your way, here's Tom McCord.
Thank you, Dave Dennis. To start the third period, Scott Beatty will be centering Jim Hiller and Joe Frederick. Frederick a little irritated there at the end of the second period with some treatment he received from Wisconsin. Let Brian Ritchie know about it, and maybe let Brian know about it a little bit too much as far as Rick Conley was concerned. There's a look at Jason Zent across the way in the penalty box. Blue line point man on the power play, Sukharov and Mark Buffet. A minute 20 left in Zent's penalty as the Wildcats clear it into the Badger zone, and flipping it up over the glass was Dirksen.
Scott Beatty, the leading scorer in the WCHA, 31 points coming into tonight's game. He's added one more with an assist on the Jimmy Hiller goal.
And Jim Hiller in hot pursuit of his line mate and teammate.
Hiller with 28 coming in.
Face off to the left side, or the catching glove side of goaltender Dwayne Dirksen. And that's Brett Kurtz to take the face off against Scott Beatty. Kurtz, an alternate captain for the Badgers. Face off comes out over the blue line, back into the Northern Michigan zone, and Phil Sukharov will retreat back in behind his own goal. A minute left in the penalty on Jason Zent of Wisconsin as Joe Frederick steams down the right side. Frederick pulls up into the near side corner, gets it back to the blue line to Sukharov. Phil takes a look from the right point across to Mark Buffet. Buffet walks down across to Sukharov, tries to one-time it off the heel of his stick, rolls harmlessly to the Badger player Richter, who cleared it back down ice. Right back into the Wisconsin zone. Beatty almost took it away from Dirksen. Simpson pitches down but fails to hold, and Buffet clears for Frederick in center ice. Joe leaves it right at the Wisconsin blue line. Beatty taps it down further in. Gobbled up, though, by Wisconsin, and they clear their own zone back into the Wildcat zone with 15 seconds remaining in the Wildcat power play. Simpson for Brent Ripplinger in center ice. Ripplinger in on the left side. Tries to go around the outside of Chris Nelson. No success there, and the puck comes all the way back down the ice. Wisconsin at full strength. Jason Hare will turn around. Up for Steve Woog on the right side, cleared right back into the Northern Michigan zone. Sardif holds it up in behind his goal. And it's cleared up the right side boards for Steve Woog. Woog for Brent Ripplinger to the Wisconsin line. He winds up, and that gets deflected away. Good play there by Richter. Loose puck taken by Rafalski. Lakeview crowd hooting and hollering. There's a Wildcat player down in behind the goal, and that is Brent Ripplinger once again. Second time this weekend.
Mark Stossner getting escorted onto the ice by Garrett McDonald and Joe Frederick to take a look at Ripplinger. Maybe we can see again what transpired. Ripplinger was down a little slow getting up once or twice last night. And thanks to the wonders of the guys downstairs, we'll have another look at it. Ripplinger gets ridden, and he just goes down. I didn't see whether he caught his head or what happened.
There was a
really.
crossing Badger there, and from the way he went, it could have possibly been a stick. Let's take a closer look. There's a Badger crossing right when he goes down. Right here, this guy coming across in front of the, right there. With the stick.
Ripplinger goes off holding his back area.
Blaine Moore.
So we'll see what happens as Stossner takes a look at him on the bench.
Face off with the Wildcats ruled to have caused the stoppage in play out over the Wisconsin blue line. Long clearing pass from Tucker. fails to find Francisco at the Wildcat line. Loose puck back to the Badger zone. Jason Zent just returned from the penalty box. His long pass too far up ice, and that'll be an icing call as it went off the stick of Tucker all the way across the red goal line, and the face-off back into the Badger zone.
Chad Dameworth, the freshman defenseman, seeing his first action this weekend. Tonight's game brought to you in part by the American Cancer Society. Don't miss out on the Roaring 20s Millionaire Party out at Marquette Mountain, sponsored by the American Cancer Society and the Marquette Community Theater.
Puck cleared all the way back down ice again. Corwin Sardiff out in the near side corner. A little stick work there by Corwin as he leaves it for Phil Sukharov. Harding backhands it off the sideboards into center ice. Brought right back into the northern zone. Francisco has it roll off the end of his stick. Harding for Mark Buffet, who'll break out. Buffet bumped by Rafalski, carries on, flips it down into the Badger zone. Zabo and Richter bump in behind the Badger goal. Zent and Harding there also. Badgers fail to come away with it. Shot high over top of the goal, taken by Tony Zabo. Zabo bumps with Francisco. Wildcats battling in the far side. Zabo flips it around in behind the goal. Badgers pick it up, clear it up ice. Icing is waved off as the linesman ruled Northern could have played it. Dameworth's pass eludes Rojo at the blue line. Rojo takes it back. Play a little scrambly here early in the third period. Hustling back into his own zone is Mark Strobel. Puck cleared up the near side boards. Phil Newer takes it in center ice. Throws it back in. It'll be brought right back out by Harwell. For Dan Plott, drop pass. And having that poked away was Moore. A long shot from the blue line by Kurtz. And Sardiff got in the way of that one. Held in at the blue line, a long shot, and that missed everything off the stick of Harwell. Loose puck for Jimmy Hiller, and he's just going to flip it back to the Wisconsin line. Picked up by Rojo. He flips off an easy shot. Then Dirksen takes care of that one. Rojo still tied up in the high slot area as the Badgers will get it out of their own zone into center ice. On the move is Mark Strobel, clearing into the northern Michigan zone. Sardiff once again leaves for Phil Newer. Rojo tries to bang it off the far side boards, tied up there by Spencer. Second effort, Cats still fail to clear the zone. Phil Newer now taps it back in behind his own goal for freshman Jason Hare. Hare holds things up to take a look. 15:25 left in regulation. Pass intercepted, brought back in over the line by Helgeson. Off the stick of Spencer, flipped towards the slot area and intercepted by Newer back out the center ice.
Wimbledon at Lakeview.
Just about. Once again, Jason Hare moves it forward. Down into the Wisconsin zone. Woog knocked that pass down off the stick of Dirksen. Puck loose in behind the Badger goal. Woog bumping across with Chris Nelson far side boards. Badgers try and break out of the zone. Dameworth holds it up, throws it into late offside Northern Michigan. Loose puck right at the blue line. McGilvery knocked it down. Ripplinger fired it, and blocking it was Jeff Sanderson. Loose puck right in front as Dirksen was out for a skate. Far side, Woog taps it in behind the goal. Nelson, though, gobbles that up. Up for Helgeson. Helgeson into center ice. Takes a slash there from Ripplinger. Penalty coming Northern Michigan. Sukharov bumps his man from behind, and we'll have a penalty call upcoming on the Wildcats, and the Badgers have an opportunity down 2-1 on the power play.
It'll be Ripplinger going for a high stick. And Dallas Drake apparently has about 9 more seconds to serve in his misconduct as he tried to step out of the penalty box. He will get to do so first whistle after his misconduct has expired. The Badgers are 0-for-4 tonight on the power play. Take another look at the replay, and you see Brent Ripplinger right there getting the stick on his Badger opponent and drawing the 2-minute penalty.
From the face-off, Wildcats will try and kill off the extra man for Wisconsin, and Jason Hare clears at the length of the ice. Lakeview crowd getting up a cheer for the Wildcats of Go Cats Go. Loose puck taken by Mark Buffet. Buffet's going to bust right in. Buffet, shot save, Dirksen. Big save there by the Wisconsin goaltender. Cats still dangerous, right in front of the goal. And the goal is now off the magnets as Buffet got bumped into it by Bont. And the faceoff will stay in the Wisconsin zone.
And now they tell Dallas Drake that he can leave the sin bin. But Dwayne Dirksen, just another huge save on Mark Buffet streaking in. We'll take another look at it as Buffet picks up the puck right there at center ice, intercepting the pass by Richter. Gets in, and Dirksen goes to his knees and is able to kick the puck away.
Save of the hockey game for Dirksen in the Wisconsin goal.
One of about 30.
Drake and Helgeson, a pair of 10s on the faceoff. Loose puck into the near side corner. Badgers with Tucker. Tucker, a sophomore from Bloomington. Long lead pass up ice. Jason Francisco. Francisco throws it around the far side boards. Sukharov picks it up, flips it back out into center ice. Drake takes it away from Nelson. Dallas Drake backing over the line, tries to make a move and shoots it just wide of the goal. Badgers with Nelson, hustle over, bring it back up through center ice. Tap down in behind the goal for Helgeson, too far. Neuer fails to clear the zone. Cross ice, Nelson here on the left blue line. Dumps it around in behind the goal. Neuer once again. Lead pass up, held in. Long shot right on, and Sardif the save. That came off the stick of Rafalski, and the Wildcats finally clear it down the ice. They'll opt for a full-scale change. Badgers clear back up ice. McDonald picks it up, throws it right back the other way. 20 seconds left in Ripplinger's minor penalty. Badgers hustling with Jason Zent to try and clear it. Puck up over the glass and into the crowd.
Tonight's game brought to you in part by Auto Works of Marquette, selling and servicing Audi, Volkswagen, Porsche, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. Auto Works of Marquette.
Still 14 seconds left in number 14's penalty. That's Brent Ripplinger for Northern Michigan. See Garrett McDonald there discussing things with the linesman.
And Mark Buffet across the way giving instructions to Ripplinger as to his assignment when the penalty expires.
It's Buffet, Jason Hare, Tony Szabo, and Garrett McDonald for the final 10 seconds of this Wisconsin power play. Richter's long pass too far, intercepted by Buffet. Penalty has expired. Wildcats are back at full strength. Richter being bothered by Szabo, left it for Moore, who cleared it around the far side boards. Loose puck in the center ice zone, cleared back into the Badger end of the ice, where it's picked up by Richter. Intercepted by McDonald, cleared right back into the Wisconsin zone. 11:55 left in regulation play. So far a scoreless third period, 2-1 overall. Northern Michigan with the 1-goal advantage. Brett Kurtz backing over the line. Bumped into the near side boards by Dameworth. Clearing pass for Hiller. Jimmy can't control it. Taken by Spencer. Back to the blue line. Cleared back into the near side corner now by Joe Harwell. Puck still loose. Harwell tries to regain control. Does so. Now loses the puck, and Mark Buffet breaks out. His pass off the skate of Mike Harding, and Rafalski hustles back. For Spencer in center ice. Spencer weaves his way in over the Northern Michigan blue line. Bumped there by Scott Beatty. Along the far side boards, Andy Shire can't control it, and Phil Sukharov comes away. Sukharov, nice move to Beatty. Beatty on the backhand, tries a centering pass, and that hit the side of the goal. Rolls in behind the cage, rebound, Beatty right out front of the goal. And Dirksen made another huge save right there on Scott Beatty. Beatty just throws it the length of the ice now, and that'll be an icing call on Northern Michigan, and Dirksen with his second big save, Dave, in the last 5 minutes.
Boy, some good hustle by Scott Beatty. And Dwayne Dirksen just comes up huge again. I don't think there's any more we can say. As you'll see, Beatty cruising in front right here, gets the shot off, and Dirksen got all of it. Well, to this point of the hockey game, I guess we can say it's easily the best we've seen Dirksen play.
here at Lakeview. That's got to make him feel good after some of the tough times he's had in here.
That's for sure.
Frederick at his own blue line, lead pass for Scott Smith. Sioux Michigan native, falls down along the near side boards. Rafalski picks it up, loose puck comes back to the blue line. Jason Hare holds it, flips it towards the high slot area. Smith on the turnaround, and he shot it wide. Smith battling in behind the goal along with Rojo and Rafalski. Penalty call coming up on Wisconsin as Rojo was sent to the ice.
Could be a checking from behind. 9:41 will be the time of the call. The Wildcats will go on the power play for the 8th time tonight. NMU just 1 for 16 in the series. On the power play, it'll be Jason Zent. They'll call it a trip.
It's 2 Badger penalties in a row on Zent as we'll check it out on the replay. And there's Rojo in behind the goal, trying to hop by and gets pushed down over top of the stick of Zent. Important power play for Northern Michigan, an important penalty kill for Wisconsin with only 10:19 left in regulation play.
And you've got Beatty and Hiller and Drake on the front line. Could spell trouble for the opponent.
I don't think Jason Zent just said hi to his mom and dad either. Loose puck in center ice. Francisco almost got away, but Jimmy Hiller comes back with it. Hiller drop pass for Beatty, avoids a check, top of the circle, winds it, fakes it, snaps it, and that went wide of the goal. Beatty pushed into the boards. Badgers pick it up and clear it back to center ice. Minute 30 left in the Wildcat power play. Mark Buffet clears it forward. Beatty in over the line. Beatty cruising, snaps it. That's blocked out front of the goal. Good defensive play that time by Nelson. And the Badgers clear back into the Northern Michigan zone. Hiller taps it back into the corner. Rafalski picks it up, clears it up the near side board. Took a strange hop off the dasher. And finally Richter picks it up and clears it all the way back down ice. A minute exactly left in the tripping minor on Jason Zent. Wildcats will try and set up the power play one more time with 9:10 left in regulation play. Szabo through center ice to the Badger blue line. Drop pass Harding, return pass Szabo, far side corner. Ripplinger can't get there in time, and the Badgers once again clear the puck. And so far have done another excellent job killing off this power play. Ripplinger weaves his way in, taken to the ice. Loose puck in the high slot, picked up by Wisconsin, held by Simpson. Blocked now by Blaine Moore. Puck down along the near side boards. Kurtz tries to come away, can't do it. Loose puck right in front of the goal. Ripplinger tries to hop in there. Tied up in the corner, play whistle down, a Badger on top of the puck. And the face-off will stay in the Wisconsin zone.
That was Rafalski on his seat back in the corner to the left of Dwayne Dirksen. Rafalski, one of 2 Michigan natives on the Badger squad. Andy Shire, the other. There you see the score. The Wildcats 2-1 over the Badgers. All the scoring coming in the second period. Szabo and Hiller for NMU. Chris Nelson shorthanded for the Badgers.
18 seconds still remaining in the Wildcat man advantage. Scott Smith along with Dan Rojo and Joe Frederick up front for Rick Comley's Wildcats. Jason Hare and make that Garrett McDonald on the blue line. They call him Brad McDonald for a second. I don't know why.
Because he's wearing Brad Warenka's number.
Well, Wisconsin has killed off yet another Northern Michigan power play as the Badgers are back at full strength. Lead pass for Smith. He'll flip it down into the Badger end. Dirksen plays it around up the near side boards. Frederick tries to pinch it off there. Does so. Quick shot by Smith. Right on. Dirksen the save. Back to McDonald to drive, and that missed everything. Puck bouncing off the inboards all the way back through center ice, and Brett Kurtz carries it in 3 across. Flip pass across. Zent centering pass intercepted. Knocked down by Rojo. Rojo still all tied up, along with Kurtz. Play way offside at the Northern Michigan blue line.
Tonight's third period brought to you in part by Jandren's Fine Jewelers in the Westwood Mall, Marquette. You see the Drake Beatty Hiller line returned to the ice for the Wildcats to illustrate the importance of those players. Between Drake, Beatty, Hiller, and Buffet, the Wildcats have only had one game so far this season in which 3 other players have managed to come up with goals, and that was last weekend out in Denver. So only one time they've got 3 goals outside of that quartet.
Loose puck in the center ice zone. Shire kicks it back into the Northern Michigan end. Loose puck for Spencer, tries a centering pass, and that got knocked down by Sukarov. Cleared back to the blue line. Rafalski holds it, winds it up. Stick save by Sarda. Dameworth off the back end boards. Clearing pass for Hiller. Jimmy's just going to dump it back up into center ice. Intercepted by Drake. Drake back for Beatty and over the line. Beatty tied up from behind, backhands it. Dirksen sticks that away. Badgers pick it up, clear it down ice. That should be an icing call on Wisconsin with 7:07 remaining in regulation play.
I'll tell you, Scott Beatty doing a nice job just to get that shot off. He had Barry Richter hanging all over him like a cheap suit. Richter, the 6'2", 200-pound junior from Madison, and Scott Beatty listed at 5'7", 170.
You mentioned the Badgers' victory this afternoon against Northwestern Michigan, a big winner over Ohio State, 31-3. It's kind of a surprise, Michigan State defeating Illinois.
Well, I tell you, if you get beat by Michigan State and Northwestern, you don't deserve to go to a bowl, even though Illinois just might.
Puck back in behind the Wisconsin goal. Cats centering pass, they score! That one off the goaltender Dirksen. And I think that was McGilvery. I think.
We'll have to take another look at it. It would be the first Wildcat goal for the freshman from Surrey, British Columbia.
15. I don't have any idea how it went in even.
Neither do we. Take a look. I think it went off Dirksen right there.
McGilvery just trying to center it and picks up his first collegiate goal. You heard Brian Ritchie. 15 most likely will be unassisted.
3-1, Northern Michigan, a very big goal. As Dirksen got a bad break on the centering pass by McGilvery.
Don't matter if it's pretty, just as long as it crosses that goal line, they all count 1 point. Newer and Ripplinger will draw the assists.
.650 left in regulation play. Badgers with Zent will wheel it out of their own zone. Throws it into the Northern Michigan zone. Hustling after it there is Chris Tucker. Bumps his man along the end boards. That's Jason Hare. Tucker comes away with a puck. Tries to reverse it back in behind the goal. Centering pass, and Francisco had it bounce over his stick. Harwell inside his own blue line will play it off the back end boards, looking for Chris Nelson. Nelson has it poked away, but Jason Zent's right there to cover up. Tucker in center ice. Bumped by Drake. Francisco carries on. Bumped a little bit by Garrett McDonald and cleared back out of the zone by Tony Szabo. Icing the call on Northern Michigan, and the face-off comes all the way back into the Wildcat zone.
I'll tell you, Tom, one thing that goal does for the Wildcats is it forces Wisconsin maybe to open up their offense a little bit more and take a few more chances. And how many times last year did we see the Wildcats with a 3-1 or 4-1 lead in the third period and end up winning at 6-1 or 7-1?
Exactly the case. And kind of lost along the game line here somewhere is that the winner is in first place all alone in the WCHA race. Northern Michigan has a chance to be back on top if they hold on to this 2-goal lead late in the hockey game. Pass intercepted by Scott Beatty, is still offside at the Wisconsin blue line.
Scott Beatty, the Wildcat senior sniper.
Left in regulation play.
You can become a member of the NMU Bleacher Creature Fan Club. You can sign up at any home athletic event, such as a hockey game here at Lakeview or basketball up at Hedgecock, or any other Wildcat home sporting event. $7 for students, $10 for non-students. Get you a nice sweatshirt, a coffee mug, and chances to win all kinds of great prizes.
And once again, both basketball teams, Mike Geary's women and Dean Ellis's men, opened the season with victories today over at the Hedgecock Fieldhouse. Congratulations to both of those squads. Wildcats control it. Dan Rojo along the far side boards. Tips it forward for Scott Smith. Smith fails to clear the zone. Nelson shot from the blue line, knocked down. Cleared back out by Rojo. Harwell back into his own zone for Wisconsin. Turning back is Nelson. Lead pass intercepted in center ice. Phil Newer back for Scott Smith. Nelson will beat Rojo to that loose puck. And cleared back to center ice. Shot right back into the Wisconsin zone. Harwell. For Helgeson. Center ice. Spencer. Blast by Helgeson, and that gets deflected up into the end crowd and will stay in the Northern Michigan zone.
We've got an injured person taking a nasty shot up there. Looks like he got it around the collarbone. I think he'll be able to continue, though.
Well, I tell you, you can't overemphasize. You got to keep your eye on the puck at all times. I remember the first game last season. We almost got a puck up here, and I saved your life.
I don't quite remember it that way, but...
A dribbler from the blue line, and Sardiff reacted late to that one. It went wide of the Wildcat goal, though, and the loose puck is picked up by Jason Hare across ice. Tony Szabo. He's just going to flip it down into the Wisconsin zone. Mike Harding pushes it back in behind the goal line area. Puck still loose. Rafalski takes a bump from Harding, but gets the puck to a teammate along the near side boards. Back in behind the goal once again. Rafalski, I think, got tripped up by his own goaltender, Dirksen. And this is Rafalski now in the face-off circle. Can't control it. Drake looking down low. Buffet on the backhand. Quick shot, never made it through. Good defensive job there by the Badgers to cover up. 3:55 left in regulation play. Puck flipped back into the Northern Michigan zone. Francisco with a head of steam. Chases in behind the cage. Sukharov dumps it back into the near side corner for Hare. For Hiller. For Scott Beatty. Here we go. 2-on-1. Harwell back. Beatty and Drake. Beatty flips it across off Drake's pad, and that went wide of the goal. Dallas in behind the Badger cage. Bumped there by a pair of Badgers, and Francisco comes away with the loose puck. Lead pass for Zent through center ice. Jason Zent, an outstanding sophomore forward for Wisconsin, down in behind the Northern Michigan goal. Chad Dameworth kicks it across to Hiller, and he's just going to clear out the center ice. And Strobel was going to try and clear that back in. That would have been way offside, though. Play loose at the Wisconsin blue line. Long lead pass across ice. This is Tucker. Tucker's shot gets deflected in behind the goal, and Phil Sukharov will take it. 2:50 left in regulation play. We'll keep a watchful eye on the Badger goal to see if they'll pull Dirksen here in the final 2:45. Chris Nelson will try and set things up. Lead pass out of his own zone. Up ice in a hurry for Wisconsin is Spencer. Spencer ridden to the ice by Jeff Simpson, and Phil Newer takes it. Newer battles now along the end boards with Helgeson. Loose puck comes to Scott Smith. Center ice pass. Nice tap by Rojo. He's down the right side. Rojo winds it up. His shot knocked down. Good job there defensively by Nelson. Rojo again. Centering pass out front. Loose puck. And that went behind the player on the far side, Mark Buffet. Pass intercepted by Harding in center ice. Back for Buffet. Tapped away from him by Nelson. Newer carries on. Throws it down deep into the Wisconsin zone. Under 2 minutes to go in a hockey game. Wildcats 3, Wisconsin 1. Looking for a sweep in first place in the WCHA. Busting around the outside, Wisconsin right on, and Sardiff makes the save. Loose puck taken by Szabo. Plot steps in there. McDonald battles for it. Harwell along the far side boards. Tied up in behind the Wildcat goal. McDonald picks it up and clears it off the ice. A minute and a half left in regulation play. Dirksen still in the Wisconsin goal. Cats intercept. Here's a 2-on-1. Drake and Hiller. Drake busting in. Quick shot right on. Hiller scores on the rebound. 4-1 Northern Michigan.
Well, the Badgers don't have to worry about pulling the goaltender now as Jimmy Hiller gets his fifth of the weekend and puts the icing on the cake for the NMU Wildcats. NMU had the 2-on-1. Dallas Drake took the initial shot, and Jimmy Hiller was there to put it in. You see it, there's Hiller all alone in front of the net. Dirksen goes down, Hiller goes high, and it's 4-1 NMU.
14th goal of the season for Jim Hiller. And when you're hot, you're hot. Sounds to me like Player of the Week honors maybe from the number 18. There's a look at him on the Wildcat bench. A minute 15 left to play in the hockey game. Badgers clear it back in with Mark Strobel, and the play whistle down as Sarduk's going to hang on.
Tonight's game, our director and producer has been Gavin LeMaid. Running cameras, Deb Poyer and Mike Bath, along with Dave Chard and John Grove, Lance Carter on the replay, and Dick Strauss on the graphics. Thanks to the NMU stat crew, Justin Doherty and his bunch, and also to the NMU athletic department.
Zent snaps one from the face-off. That got deflected away. McGilvery, who earlier this period got his first Northern Michigan goal, up ice, cleared in by Ripplinger. Under a minute to go in the hockey game. Northern Michigan's going to be all alone atop the WCHA with a sweep of Wisconsin here this weekend at Lakeview Arena. Puck up over the glass again, and we'll have a face-off in center ice.
I tell you mentioned Bill McGilvery. I've been impressed with this freshman crew of
16
McGilvery and
white,
Brent Ripplinger. They haven't really put up the big numbers offensively so far this year, but they've played pretty well defensively. Not too many of those freshman mistakes that lead to other teams' goals as Steve Woog heads to the penalty box. At 19:10.
Oh, Wildcats will be shorthanded for the remaining 50 seconds of the hockey game, unless Wisconsin scores. Badgers are still in offer for the weekend on the power play situations. That's got to deflate your average pretty well. A boarding call on Steve Woog, and the Badgers will try and set it up with 35 seconds left to play. Richter dumps it forward for Blaine Moore. Intercepted by Frederick, cleared the length of the ice, 25 seconds left to play. Dirksen clears it around the goal. Plot is going to take a hit from Frederick in the near side. We'll make that Drake in the near side corner. Jason Zent straight up ice. Zent to the Northern Michigan blue line, dumps it across. Moore snaps it, that just went wide. Rebound Kurtz, and that went off the side of the goal. Once again, Zent snaps one. That went way wide, and the hockey game is over, and Northern Michigan has swept the Wisconsin Badgers. Tonight's final is 4-1 Wildcats.
And the Wildcats now in first place all by themselves in the WCHA.
Corwin Sarduk being congratulated by his Wildcat teammates, and the Cats will skate off with their 6th win in a row over the Wisconsin Badgers. We'll be back to wrap up the hockey game this evening. Final score 4-1 at Lakeview Arena.
They call this the information age and use the computer as its symbol. The old symbol is still pretty powerful, though. The telephone is everywhere. There are wires. And now, in a lot of places, there are no wires, even in the UP. Supercom suggests you bring a couple of symbols together and make a bit of noise. Get your information out there where there are no wires, quickly, reliably, and with a Motorola pager in Supercom service. Get your information out there where it belongs before it's history.
AutoWorks of Marquette takes control, featuring the finest German automotive sales and service in northern Michigan. AutoWorks features Porsche, Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and the four-wheel drive Audi 4 and 5000 S Quattro. If you've always wanted the outstanding quality of German engineering, now's the time to check out AutoWorks in Marquette. And remember to register to win tickets to see the defending national champion hockey Wildcats at Marquette's only German service and sales outlet, AutoWorks.
Welcome back to Lakeview Arena in Marquette. The final score on your screen, Northern Michigan 4 and the Wisconsin Badgers 1. Tom McCord along with Dave Dennison. Dave, the 6th victory in a row over Wisconsin by Northern Michigan and a sweep of the weekend series. First place all alone again for Northern Michigan.
Really impressive play for the Wildcats. They took a 2-0 lead, gave up a shorthanded goal in the last moment of the second period to the Badgers, but they came right out in the third period, played well in their own zone, and then they were able to get a couple of goals. Jimmy Hiller and Bill McGilvery, McGilvery at 13:03 and Hiller at 18:41 to seal it up. As we take a look at our goal summary, there was no scoring in the first period. Tony Szabo picking up his 4th of the season and 2nd of the weekend at 11:05 from Beaufait and Simpson.
Well, I got Northern Michigan off to a good start in the second period. Jimmy Hiller came right back at 12:33 with his 13th goal of the season and his 4th of the weekend from Drake and Beatty. And then, as you talked about, that short-handed goal by Chris Nelson late in the period, which gave Wisconsin some momentum going into period number 3. You know, a key point, Dave, in that third period before Northern Michigan extended that lead past 2-1, Dwayne Dirksen, I thought, played his best game at Lakeview Arena against Northern Michigan. He made a couple of big saves in that third period to keep Wisconsin at 2-1.
Well, Dirksen had 35 saves tonight, and I would say 25 to 28 of those were from point-blank range and a half a dozen almost impossible saves. The Wildcats very lucky to come up with 4 goals.
Well, the goal that let the air out of the bag, so to speak, was the one you just saw by McGilvery, and that was actually a centering pass that went off Dirksen and into the Wisconsin goal. That made it 3-1.
Newer and Ripplinger draw the assists, and then Jimmy Hiller puts the icing on the cake at 18:11, his 5th of the weekend and 14th of the season. We'll take a look at it on the replay.
2-on-1 for Northern Michigan. Dallas Drake will take it in and snap the shot. Pad save, and Jimmy's just right there to pick up the rebound, and that's just like picking cherries down there for the big fella. And I'll tell you, Jimmy Hiller, along with Dallas Drake, have been probably the most consistent Wildcats offensively so far this season.
Well, Scott Beatty didn't get his name in the scoring column, but he did have 2 assists tonight. Hiller had 5 goals. Beatty assisted on all of them this weekend. So a big weekend for the Wildcats' #1 line.
And I guess you talk about up front, you got to talk about in the rear also. And Corwin Sardif, as he has all season, just played himself another outstanding weekend series of college hockey. Down on the ice after the game, being congratulated by the Wisconsin coaching staff for the job that he did.
Well, the Badgers got 27 shots on the net tonight. Sardif only let 2 in. He had 30 saves last night. Tonight, though, 10 in the first, 10 in the second, only 5 in the third, for a total of 25. Dwayne Dirksen, 10 in the first, 17 saves in the second, and 8 in the third, for a total of 35. Penalties in the game. The Badgers were whistled down 9 times. The Wildcats 8. Both teams with the 0 for on the power play. The Badgers 0 for 6, 0 for 16 on the weekend, and the Wildcats were 0 for 8, 1 for 17.
Well, Northern Michigan with the sweep moves into first place by themselves in the WCHA. Next weekend, they'll be out to take on the Colorado College Tigers, and 2 weeks from this weekend, we'll be back home to take on the Huskies of St. Cloud State. Until that time, for Dave Dennis, I'm Tom McCord. Have a great evening. And once again, your final score, Northern Michigan 4 and Wisconsin 1.